my seat down there.
That's all right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Tabernacle Township Committee meeting for June 25th. Please stand for a flag salute. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have the sunshine notice. This meeting is called pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Law. This meeting of June the 25th, 2018 was included in the list of notices sent to the central record, Burlington County Times and Courier Post, posted on the bulletin board in Town Hall. It has remained continuously posted as required notices under the statute. In addition, a copy of this notice is and has been available to the public. It is on file in the office of the municipal clerk. We have roll call. Ms. Brown.
Here.
Mr. Franzen. Mr. Lee.
Here.
Mr. Yates.
Here.
Mayor Barton.
Present. For those who are regulars at the meeting, you'll see a change in the agenda. And in the future, we're going to do some reports from professionals that don't need to be here for the whole meeting. And that may include, from time to time, Mr. Guzzi, a construction official, or others. But I'd like to bring up and introduce everyone. Arch Liston. Arch is our public safety director. Arch, would you like to come up?
Certainly.
And Arch is going to present his report, and you will see after his report, you will have an opportunity to comment on his report, and then after that, agenda items.
First of all, I'd like to thank the opportunity that the committee has given me to provide this service to the people of Tabernacle Township. I do find a real opportunity, and I will tell you that it's been very pleasant the first few weeks meeting with people in the community. It's been very welcoming and very informative on the needs of the public safety community in the township. Just to let you know the update that I met with the fire chief, the rescue chief, and the OEM director individually for long periods of time, going over their operations, understanding what they do, and how they operate in the township and in the mutual aid situations, along with their communications with the county. Also, the structure of their agencies and funding mechanisms for each of their agencies. I also met with the local emergency management planning group that meets quarterly. Monthly. The biggest thing was going over the Emergency Operating Center for Emergency Management, which is, I will tell you, one of the nicer facilities that I've seen in my career, and very impressed by the Emergency Management Coordinator, even though being new, was very up to date on things and had a full understanding of what its functions were and how it's to operate. I also met with the regional CERT team members, introduced myself, and dedicated our support from the local community of what we can do for them. Met with the New Jersey State Police at Red Line, met with the station commander, whatever issues with him, and if he has any concerns or problems, we will be in communication. But it was nice to meet with them and kind of get their perspective on things. Also worked with the administrator and the JIF coordinator, Joint Insurance Fund coordinator. We have some trip and fall issues at the fire department that were brought forth by the chief. We do allow people to utilize our firehouse for outside activities. I know WIC does, other senior citizen groups. There's some trip and fall hazards we're working on, getting the concrete ripped up out front and trying to get that straightened out, so we should have an up-to-date time frame on that. Worked with the fire chief. He's got some repairs on a pumper that he needs to get done, so we're working through that. Then we had a joint meeting with the fire department chief, the rescue chief, and OEM coordinator. I just went through some coordinating issues that have been sitting, and we're working through those. Been very comfortable with the meeting. I think we have a much better understanding of who's responsible for what. Very professional. All groups were very professional, and we came up with some ideas on how we can work together at scenes much more efficiently and without any real issues going forward, I hope. Finally got an office. We got it set up today over in the emergency services building. I'll be in with the emergency management coordinator, and I look forward to that and getting in there on a regular basis starting tomorrow, since Bob will be there all day tomorrow. Spent a lot of the last few days looking at the financials audits of both fire, rescue squad, and the town. What I'm working on is capital projections, looking at equipment, looking at what equipment needs are going to be over the next year, next 3 years, 5 years. Also looking at debt service and what the town can afford, and working obviously with the administrator on making sure that we budget properly and we don't overspend on public safety equipment if we don't need it, as if we can regionalize our purchasing efforts, or at least regionalize our services. I think it'll save the township a lot of dollars in the future, because everybody's got a tender. If we can offset some of those and purchases offset with other communities, Chemung, Southampton, I think we'll be in a much better situation. Tonight on the agenda we have the sale of the truck 4318. What we're looking to do is auction that truck off, but we are pulling a Cascade unit off of that, sticking onto a rehab truck for the rescue squad, which they're going to fund. The rescue squad is going to fund, so there'll be no cost to the tax dollar, but we are selling that piece of equipment off, and we'll be evaluating other pieces of equipment over the next couple of months to see their needs and determine, especially from insurance costs, if we can continue to have those on the books or not. Working with fire, one of the things I know is outstanding, we met Friday, was about beginning evaluating putting a fire truck at the emergency services building. We are hoping to early July to be able to station one there, but we're going to do some assessment first of drivers, locations, response, some initial needs for gear. So we will be examining that much more deeply, but we hope to get a fire truck in that area, stationed at the emergency services building in early July. Working with the Friday, I just got the phone, I'm sorry, but 4:15 today with the Director of Public Safety of the county. Bob and I have a meeting with him on Friday to go over the operations of how Central dispatches units, determining what our needs are as they dispatch units. Just a lot of, I don't want to call it minutia, but a lot of little things that we must look at that we'll make determinations on. Any questions from the committee?
Anyone from the committee? Any professionals? Okay, we're going to open up to the public. Anybody from the public have a comment on our solicitor's report? Okay. Okay. Mr. Brooks.
Thank you. Stuart Brooks, Morris Meadow Road. Mr. Liston, welcome aboard. It's nice to have you here. And the trite cliche of hitting the ground running, but it sounds like you really have, and appreciate hearing all of the steps you've taken so far, and so far has not been that long. So thank you and welcome here. I have a simple question, simply because I don't know what a Cascade unit is, and I'd like to know.
It fills bottles up. You know the Scott air packs that firemen
Yep.
go into fires with, God bless them. The air packs, when they run out of air, they come out of the fire, they'll be rehabbing because they're hot or cool or whatever. What they are able to do right at the scene is refill the bottle of the fire. So it gets keeps firemen active. So they come out, they get refilled, they can go back in and fight the fire with a refilled bottle.
Got it. So that refilling device is coming off the truck and...
Yeah, and the fire department already has another one, I believe. So this will be a kind of a backup to them. But also, it'll be on a rescue rig, which our rescue squad obviously supports the fire department when there is an active fire,
Right.
and vice versa. So it just gives them extra equipment and rehab. The rehab is when, if you're not familiar with fires, when you rehab a fireman, a lot of times if it's very, very cold or very, very hot, there's times when you got to get them out off the scene. You got to get them in. You got to get them water. You got to get them warm. And this will be coordinated with them.
Okay. Thanks very much.
Sure thing.
Anyone else from the public? Okay, thank you, Art, for your
Thank you.
report. You're welcome to stay as long as you want, but you're also welcome to leave.
Thank you. I'll hang around for a bunch.
Okay, good. Okay, so now we're going to have public comments on the agenda items. Only anyone on the agenda items? Mr. Brooks.
Thank you, Stuart Brooks, Morgan Meadow Road. I had a question, a small series of questions about Resolution 2018-77, that's the temporary CFO. Just the essence of it is, how will this work? And let me try to be more specific. I know that Doug already is the head of Public Works, a part-time administrator, and to also become the temporary CFO puts yet another item on his plate. Doug's obviously a very capable guy, but I have to ask, is this putting too much on his plate? How many extra hours or extra duties are we talking about here? And that, do you want to answer these as I go, or are you going to get into this?
Yeah, give us all your
All right, that's going to get into a discussion of how long you expect the temporary position to work, not work, but to continue, which is to say, has another permanent position been advertised for, and what's the schedule for receiving resumes back and making a decision, and hopefully reaching the appointment, first position on a permanent basis. And what happens if we don't receive candidates sufficient, satisfactory, as has happened last time? The other set of questions that I'd like to hear some discussion on gets to the conflict of interest. Again, not because I think that Doug is a dishonest person, not at all, but are there functions that the CFO does that requires both the signature of the CFO and the administrator? Because if we're combining those positions, even on a temporary basis, then you have the oversight being done by the person who is being overseen, and that's obviously not what we would want on a long-term basis. Even on a short-term basis, it puts everyone in an uncomfortable position. And I guess lastly, I think that pretty well covers it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Doug, can you respond? And I think you can clear this up, how this is going to work, right?
Okay, let's start with the conflict of interest. Before I took the job as administrator, we had an administrator CFO / position for 3 administrators, including 1-year white hire in 1999. So that has not been a conflict of interest previously, and there's a number of municipalities that combine those 2 positions already. As far as what added job duties, I'm going to have probably no more than I have now in overseeing the CFO, because if you look at the next resolution down, if the committee feels that it wishes to go down this road, we're going to hire Bowman and Companies to provide all the services the CFO does for us right there, does under that. Under the state statute, we cannot hire a temporary CFO with a license because it must be a 4-year appointment. So there's provision in the law that allows a non-certified person to be named as acting for up to a year while you do your search. It also allows for you to hire an accounting service to take care of the journal entries and make sure everything is in order. So I will be overseeing Bowman and Companies the same way as Terry and I have worked together. So it's really not adding anything more on our plate at this point.
Doug, do we have a date that we're going to advertise? Because we're going to move pretty quickly.
We've already put the advertising in, and when's the closing date?
6th of
July?
July.
Right. We have a closing date of 6th of July. We advertised right after the June 4th meeting. And that has been advertised in a number of professional association and also on the league website. So that's been out there for most of the month, and closing is on July 6th, and we hope the subcommittee can work through those applications and make an appointment sooner than later.
So what we've done is we've aggressively advertised this more than we did the first round. So we anticipate hopefully getting more applicants. But to answer your question, Mr. Brooks, what happens if we don't get the qualified candidates? We'll continue down this road, and as you heard the administrator say, we have up to a year. Hopefully we'll get the qualified candidates next round after the advertising we've done, and we can appoint a CFO relatively quickly. Anyone else from the public on agenda items? Mrs. Brooks?
Hello, Fran Brooks, Morris Meadow Road. I have a question about 2018-69, even though this is partly a budget issue. Were the employee raises still kept at 2% across the board? Okay, are there employees that are?
There may be a penny here or two difference on rounding, but it should be 2%.
For everybody? Okay. On resolution 2018-76 has to do with the sale, the auctioning of properties. I'm wondering if you would also speak to what the status of the Long Street property at 9 World, which you put out for auction on May 24th, I think, and haven't reported on. So it would be good to know whether that property, the certificate sale of certificate or certificate sale was actually accomplished and for how much. So if you could talk about that in the context of the resolution 76. And this is going to 2018-78, which has to do with the Bowman practices. Are they, if they do CFO work, how much is that going to cost for them to do the CFO? Is it going to be the same as what we've been funding Mr. Henry at, or are the charges going to increase if Bowman takes over those responsibilities? How this picture is lining up is not terribly clear, so it would be great if you could speak to that, and when Bowman would take over. And does Bowman's role change the auditor's position? I mean, are we replacing Frenier? No, so Bowman is taking over the CFO then? What?
They're providing us accounting services,
Accounting services.
not auditing services.
Okay, and those accounting services would go to whatever carry all the responsibilities that Mr. Henry has assumed over the years on behalf of Tabernacle. Okay, so your position is, and are they going to be this? Is it going to be the financial equivalent? Are the services that they're providing, are they going to be the financial equivalent to what we've been paying Mr. Henry?
They can't legally sign certain documents.
Okay, so that means you will sign them. So that's why you have to be appointed temporary CFO to cover those documents that they can't sign? Okay, so there shouldn't be a conflict. We were just curious about this whole phenomenon of, is there a conflict here? Because there are documents that you sign, but it would be like, as Mr. Brooks explained, it would be signing your own work, which is kind of funky.
And you hired Mrs. Stinger in that exact role in 1999.
Who's Mrs. Stinger and why do we care?
Mrs. Stinger was a former CFO and administrator, combination position.
That's
We
got
did
nothing to
that
do with
for a
him.
number of years, from 1984 to 1998, 99. Actually, till 2001.
It's
We
fine,
had
it's
that.
fine.
That's what we
it's-
had. That's what we
okay,
had.
It's fine that you bring her up, but I think that what's relevant is really what's going on now and not what happened 18 years ago.
Well-
So the only reason I'm asking this is just trying to figure out how this whole system is going
It
to work.
works the same way it
And
worked
if it's
when-
going to cost us
when
more
that was it.
money, or maybe it'll cost us less money. That's all. Have you worked out the financials?
We have the financials.
You have the financials on that? Okay. Okay, Very good, thank you.
You're welcome, Mr. Brooks. Anyone else from the public? Okay, we're going to close the public portion and approval of the bills. Mrs. Brown, second?
I'll second my other question.
Yes.
I have a couple questions.
Okay.
Why was paying for portable toilet rolls in middle school?
Because the TAA uses it as a baseball field.
Okay.
Any other questions?
And how long do we have, is sort of pulling it this month, or how long do we have it? The last I checked, the season's over. Pretty close.
Performance,
Pretty close to being over.
Pretty close to being over.
So we'll lose it next month, or we'll lose it?
Probably.
Okay. And the battery from Jesco, the JD444, is that, which piece of equipment is that?
It's the wheel loader.
Okay. That's all I got. Thanks.
Any other questions for the committee? Okay, roll call?
Thank you, Ms. Brown.
Yes.
Mr. Lee.
Yes.
Mr. Gates.
Yes.
Mayor Barton.
Yes. Okay, municipal budget, public hearing for the municipal budget amendment.
Yeah, at the last meeting, we approved an amendment to amend the budget. And basically what it's done is it's taken us down to a zero tax increase. We think we've moved the revenue anticipated from surplus from $672,101 to $656,498. We've reduced the amount to be raised by taxes from $2,861,926 to $2,798,089. And the total budget's moved from $4,377,562 to $4,298,122. Some of the appropriations that were reduced were workers' comp from $106.5 to $96.5, public safety fire expenses from $116.5 to $110.5, aid and volunteer ambulance squad from $35,000 to $12,000, public buildings and grounds and other expenses from $143.3 to $133.3, garbage and trash removal from $425 to $420. And it added $5,000 for gypsy moth spraying. It also increased the contingent from $30,000 to $40,000. And capital improvement fund has been reduced from $75,000 to $35,000. And the reserve for uncollected taxes has been reduced from $131,279 to $138,39. This amendment does require a public hearing. We've already had the public hearing on the rest of the budget, so we only need to open the public hearing on the amendment, and then you can approve the amendment and approve the budget.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Frenier? Have a motion?
So moved.
Second. Roll call?
Ms. Brown.
No.
You have to have a public hearing.
Okay. I'm sorry, it is a public hearing, I apologize. So we'll open the budget to the public. Anyone from the public want to speak about the budget? Mr. Brooks.
Thank you, Stuart Brooks, on Worthing Road. I'd like to thank the committee for their close attention to reducing the expenditures and also for plugging in the sales of surplus property to increase revenues. I would like to applaud you for that, and I'd like to comment that as next year's budget comes around, the same focus on revenues, increasing revenues ought to be followed up more strongly. As has been commented before, we have ESB, which residents pay roughly $200,000 on the bond for. It generates no rent from an organization with a strong revenue. Another source of revenue would be the appropriate classification of non-farm properties, which actually are classified as farming. As many of you know from personal experience, active farming requires substantial inputs of time, material, and yet I know that there's a lot of land in the township that's classified as two farm, which gets virtually no inputs. And this practice puts a strain on the municipal budget, school budget, regional school budget. I know we're an agricultural community, and I know this is a message that doesn't fall happily on your ears. I fully support farmers and agriculture, you guys know that. But on the other hand, it's a two-sided coin. We give Q Farm assessment or classification when in fact land is being used as people. And the definition of active farm, what constitutes active farming is in this township extremely low. Inappropriately so. Thank you, Madam.
You're welcome. Any other comments? And then keep your comments on the budget amendment. While we appreciate your suggestions on how to increase revenue, this is about the budget amendment. Mrs. Brooks?
Yeah. Fran Brooks, Morris Meadow Road. Just want to again echo what Mr. Brooks said regarding the reduction or elimination of the 1 cent tax increase, that you did some belt tightening. It wasn't that painful to do the belt tightening, and this township will appreciate that we're not getting a 1 cent increase because you did that belt tightening, and so I'll make my other comments in public comment number 2, and that regard revenues as well. But we do appreciate you taking off that 1 cent. And you have done that, correct? Yes? There will be no tax increase. Okay, thank you very much. Just want to confirm that. Thank you.
Anyone else in the public? Okay, close the public portion. We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Thank you. Ms. Brown?
No.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Mayor Barton?
Yes. I skipped over the approval of minutes, so we're going to deal with May 28, 2018 regular and executive board meetings. Have a motion.
Mayor Barton, if I could, we just voted on the resolution, now we have to vote on the topic of the budget.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, you're right. Sorry, honey. Okay. A motion to adopt resolution 2018, the municipal budget as amended. Have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Mayor Barton?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, now we'll go back to the May 21, 2018 regular and executive board minutes. Have a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second. Roll call.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Mayor Barton?
Abstain. Okay, resolution 2018-68, approving the review of the audit. Have a motion and a second, and we'll talk about it.
So moved.
Second. Brown and Yates.
Thank you.
Devin, you have anything to say about the audit?
No, I know, everything went well. I don't believe we had any, we had one comment. We had one comment. I'm sorry, I didn't know that was on the agenda tonight. I didn't bring it with me. Comment was concerning, I'm sorry, I've done that.
That's okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I wasn't prepared to speak on this tonight, but that's fine. Yeah, we had one comment, there was some issues with some of the cash reconciliations, the current fund and the general capital. We had to go back and do some reconciliations with them, so we did make a comment about that. Other than that, there was nothing much else to report. Fund balance was up from 984,000, from 832,000 to 984,000. So we had a pretty good year, and we were very conservative with what we used in our budget. So I feel happy with where we are financially. So other than that, we don't have a lot to report.
Great, thank you for the report, Mark. A roll call?
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Mayor Barton?
Yes. Resolution 2018-69, approving salary and wages for certain employees for year 2018. And this includes the 2% increase, right? Doug, so we can cover the increase. A motion? Second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion required? Roll call?
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Mayor Brown?
Yes.
Mayor Martin?
Yes.
Mayor, if I may for a second, I just want to interject a comment. Kevin, I just want to thank you for continuing to put multiple budget resolutions together and to get this done. I will say this, that I'm pleased that we had a zero tax increase. The night of the budget hearing, I absolutely said I was not going to vote for a tax increase, so I kind of initiated that discussion. I'm glad I did, because I think it was important, but I will say this. Under no circumstances should we be in the business of having budget discussions a week before the 4th of July. We need to do a better job collectively to get this budget process done in a more efficient manner next year. That's all I have. Thanks, Kevin.
You're welcome.
It's not your fault either. It's our fault.
Thank you.
Okay, resolution 2018-70, approve renewal of preliminary retail consumption license for PPDA Incorporated. Motion second.
Joe, can you do 70 and 71 at the same time?
Yeah, we could do them together. We'll also do 2017-71, which is approve the renewal of preliminary retail consumption license for WWJR LLC. So we're going to do a motion for 2070, or 2018-70 and 71.
Combining is going to change my vote, which is not a big deal, because you'll have probably 3 to pass. Just letting you know.
And let's separate them. That's the case. So we'll stay with resolution 2018-70, which is PDA.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Mayor Barton?
Yes. 2018-71, approve renewal of preliminary retail consumption license for WWJR LLC.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion before we vote on this? No? Okay. Roll call?
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Abstain.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Mayor Barton?
Yes. Resolution 2018-72, authorize cancellation of certain property taxes and refund pursuant to a 100% code disabled veteran exception.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion required? Okay, roll call?
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Mayor Barton?
Yes. Resolution 2018-73, approve cancellation of aged outstanding checks.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Mayor Barton?
Yes. Resolution 2018-74, authorize the placement of temporary signs in the public right-of-way for a joint social event, Tabernacle Rescue Squad and Tabernacle Historical Society.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Mayor Barton?
Yes. Resolution 2018-75, authorize the disposal of surplus property. Have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Just need to insert the date of the sale.
Did we get a second?
No, we haven't. I've got some comments to make regarding this, and I don't. I guess I could make it second,
Okay.
but
Okay, we'll open up for discussion.
yeah, if the only way to get a discussion is to second, then it's second.
Okay. Doug, do you want to report on what the equipment is?
And then on 75, right? On 75.
Yeah, they say something different.
No, I did, I confused the issues, so I was on 76.
Okay. We're looking at the list of equipment that the Public Works Subcommittee reviewed and recommended that we purge from the fleet. We also added a series of equipment that we had that serviced some of these trucks also, and we had some material that we did not sell in our last sale, such as the 10 by 20 tires and rims and one of the filing cabinets. And there's some extra plows that we no longer need. Could the sale of some of the trucks. And we have a floor jack that no longer meets our needs, and that's in there also. Also, item number 7 was is what is known as 4318, is the 74 Ford. I'll ask you to cross off the Cascade unit if you take Public Safety Director's recommendation.
And the generator stay?
Generator stays.
Okay.
So that's the only modification I would ask, is that we cross that Cascade unit off, given the Public Safety Director's recommendation.
Tell the public how they can bid on these items, Doug?
They will be sold through Gov Deals. It's an online auction service. We will advertise that in the paper along on our website at least it has to be between 7 and 14 days before the auction starts. We'll probably stay with the same format we did before, where it was an open auction for 14 days, and then as those items close out, that's when you can bid. You can bid during that whole period, or you can bid on the last day. We'll do both. There's plenty of information available on our website, and it will also be on our website, so you'll be able to get to the Gov Deals situation. If there are any questions when you go to the site, if they can't answer them, please call the township and we will direct you through the process.
And Doug, if I understand it correctly, if there's a particular piece of equipment that someone wants, and they put we'll call it a reserve, but they put a number on it, right? So a high number. Let's say they have an item that we suspect will get $5,000, and they put 6 on there. Isn't there a way that they get the highest bid?
They will.
Talk about how that works.
You can go in and you look at a piece of item and you say, I'd like to get as cheap as possible, but it's worth, say, $10,000 to me. So you put that in, and then as the bid goes, as bidders bid against you, your bid automatically goes up, whatever the increment that's set. It's usually around $50.
Also known as eBay.
Same way.
Let's make it simple, eBay.
A similar setup. They usually have it won't do that in the last 2 minutes without offering an extension, so nobody can wait for the last minute and jump in there and snipe it away. It allows for that to happen, but so that's really how it was. We've used it for our last sale of equipment. It's been very successful for the township, and our charge to get as much as we can for the surplus equipment for the taxpayers of Tabernacle, and we found it very successful. We did much better than we did even when we used to go in with the county when they hired an auctioneer, and we'd pull all the equipment from around the county at the same time. We did a little better that way than we did on our own auction separately. So we've done this a number of times over the last 30 years. We've gotten better at getting more money for the taxpayer.
Anyone from the committee have questions or comments?
Yeah, I do have a question. We do have the new grader now, right?
Yes.
How come the old grader is not on this list?
We have not put a scarifier on the new grader yet. Charlie asked for it to be available for 6 months just in case he needed it. We will be doing this again in the fall.
Haven't put a what on it yet?
Scarifier.
What's that?
That's a front piece that goes on the front of the grader. It's hydraulically raised and lowered and allows you to tear up the road so you can regrade it.
And what's that called then?
Scarifier.
Okay, makes sense.
Looks very similar to what farmers use. It's called a subsoiler, but it's in a much
It's almost like a box. It's almost like a box grader.
I never heard that term.
Yeah.
Why are we getting these, this equipment appraised before we decide to auction?
Why are we getting?
Why don't we get the equipment appraised before auction?
I guess because we never have in the past.
Okay. And how do we give Tabernacle residents the opportunity to be able to bid on this before it goes to a mass bidding site? Pete, can you answer that?
We've never given.
Pete, can you answer that?
I've never been asked that specific question. My initial reaction would be that it must be a public sale, open to the public, according with the statute. So for you to dispose of property, the gov deal satisfies all those requirements because it's kind of a built-in internet, open, public auction. I don't believe that you could, I guess I shouldn't answer that. I can certainly look into it. If that's something that you'd like me to expand on, I will do that. My belief is the statute says open public auction, and that means open to all of the public, but I will certainly take a look at that.
I guess my thought was that we have a lot of equipment that's here, which I'm okay with liquidating. I was sat on the public safety, or I was on that committee too, the Public Works Committee with Mrs. Brown, and getting rid of a lot of this equipment is a long time coming. I guess my thought was that if the taxpayers of Tabernacle own this equipment in the first place, why do we not give them right of first refusal for their equipment? Before it gets sold,
I suspect that
before it gets sold on a mass website.
I suspect that by not opening up the sale to the entire public, there might be an argument that the sale price is chilled, potentially to the disadvantage of other taxpayers who may not be interested in that piece of equipment. So I think that's the logic that I'll find, but I'll certainly look into it. There might be some preference or some ability. But again, I think that the statute promotes the highest and best value through an open public auction. If you limit the pool of bidders to Tabernacle residents, although I can understand the equity in doing that, as you've explained, the downside to that might be that that pool of bidders then doesn't yield the result that all of the taxpayers might be entitled to.
I can certainly recognize that. I guess my thought is that sometimes you have to, you want to try to give the taxpayers full advantage of the resources that are in Tabernacle. And at the end of the day, the taxpayers own the Sterling, they own plows, they own everything. And what can we do to make that equipment available to the taxpayers first? And is there a structure for that? So
I'll certainly look into it.
I would,
something I'm familiar with.
with that being said, I'd like to rescind my motion for second on this, and make a motion that we table this resolution this time, until Pete can get back to us in terms of another alternative for being able to liquidate this equipment.
Second.
Okay, roll call.
Oh, you got the motion?
We got a first and a second.
We have a motion to rescind. Second by Lucas.
Any other further discussion? We did have a discussion on the deputy mayor's second.
Okay.
Your motion's to table.
Roll call is running.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Woods?
Yes.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mayor Barton?
As the deputy mayor said, it's a long time coming, and Doug, I'm sure you'll enjoy the extra space once you get rid of these 28 items over in Public Works.
We've got them all lined up by the fence right now.
Okay. Good luck with it. We look forward to the revenue.
I'll get an answer to that question.
Yeah. Thanks, Pete.
I see it. I see it.
Okay, resolution 2018-76, authorize the public officer to use for owned lands. We have a motion and a second, and we're going to have a discussion.
Second.
Okay, any discussion. Doug, you want to talk about over the properties that you have here?
I worked with Peter and Dan and Jay Renwick on putting this page together. Jay recommended the minimum bids. in, reviewed the properties and took soil borings to see whether they were buildable. As you can see, some of them are and some of them aren't. I do want to thank Betsy Ponder for getting me the information on the credits that were available on block 1502, lots 4.01, 0.02, 0.03, and lot 5 together. So that was allowed us to raise the minimum bid price up since there's anticipated there's a half a credit on that property that has not been severed. And so what we're looking at is stuff that can go out to auction, or the non-buildable, correct me if I'm wrong, Peter, which you could offer them to adjoining property owners for the minimum bid.
If they're less than the size it's available for development. I just want to indicate for the record that the township isn't making representation that any of these properties are buildable. The reference is that they're exceed the size, minimum size necessary for development. There was some initial information and test bids done to see whether or not there was some information that could be offered to bidders to enhance their bidding and their value associated with the property. But certainly, as the bidding instructions and the resolution makes clear, the township isn't making any representation that they are developable, although they are providing the information that the township has in that regard. All of the properties are listed for sale at a public auction that will be conducted by the clerk. This has happened before. This is something that's been conducted in the past before. We need a date for the resolution for the sale. So I imagine you'll follow the recommendation of your clerk so she can get the appropriate advertising done. There is one item which would be block 326, lot 8. Excuse me, wait a minute now. Yeah. 326, lot 8. That is potentially less than the size available for development because of a easement, a drainage easement that's to be retained by the township. That easement will be detailed for the bidders, but that'll reduce the buildable property associated with that block and lot. It then would be, I think, Dan, less than the size necessary for development. It could be offered to contiguous property owners as a private sale. The way it's set up right now is you go out to public sale. If there's no interest in that property, it doesn't get sold, you could offer it to the contiguous property owners. But if Dan confirms that it's less than the size necessary for development, minimum size necessary for development, in view of the drainage easement, it could be offered to the adjoining properties, given its then relative value. So that's it. You've done this before. You're selling property at auction. Most of this property has been obtained through tax foreclosure and otherwise.
Dan, I had a question on the lot that Peter was talking about, 326-8. Is there a way to reduce the size of the easement for the drainage to make this a buildable lot?
Well, the easement on it doesn't reduce the size of the lot necessarily. The problem with that lot is it is low-lying there, and the township needs that area basically as a drainage easement because of some of the work that flows off the road and goes into that. So what's left is an area outside of that easement area which would be undersized. But potentially somebody might be able to get the approval to develop that, but it's doubtful.
If that's the case, though, then it would have to be the subject of a sale under this resolution as opposed to being excised out and offered to the contiguous property owners, because that statute requires that it be less than the size needed for, minimum size needed for development.
Yeah, because we're not reducing the size of the lot by that easement. It's still the larger lot. It's just a large portion of that is easement area.
Mm-hmm. And do we need all that wet area for the easement, for the drainage?
Yeah.
We do? Okay.
Which of these has the PDC credit?
1502, lots 4.01, 4.02, 4.03, and 5 together. They were
It's a quarter. It's a quarter credit.
half credit.
It's a half credit.
And Jay discussed that, we discussed that with Jay, and he was to include that in his market analysis in determining a minimum bid. So I think he factored that in coming to his recommendation of $47,300 for that block and lot.
So you're saying that the credit, finance credit's still attached?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a low number for a quarter credit.
Right.
It's a very low number for a quarter credit. Quarter credits, yeah, but even, I know it's a half credit, but 2 quarters equal 1/2, and that's, even a quarter credit was worth more, has been worth more than that. So we're talking- the quarter credits were 30 grand at one point, in the not too distant future. Are these, is this the same property that we were already given an offer for?
Yes.
What was the amount that we were offered?
I'm not sure it was a formal offer.
Okay, well, what was the informal offer we got?
I think it was 19,000.
Okay. So that was, it was a firm 19,000 or? Is that just a guess? Because I don't remember. So I'm guessing.
That's the number I remember.
Okay. I'm not sure I'm 100% sold on selling land that has a PVC attached to it, because I think there is. It's like a,
Not worth a lot right this minute.
well, right this minute, there's
But
not.
they have been in the past.
Yeah, they have been in the past, and they will be down the road with any likelihood. And in all likelihood, they'll be a higher number than what they are right now. And right now, they're with Jay's numbers.
You can go through the process if you wish to separate the credit, they have credit.
And Jay's number is right on when it comes to the value now, but it's not going to be that way forever at that point. So, but this is property that we've been sitting on for a while. If the, I guess as our decision is going to be based on whether or not we want to get the auction mounting out for 40 grand, or what the minimum bid would be for 40 grand. Or do we want to sit on it? Is it, it's like a, it's kind of like an investment.
Remember, you always have the ability to
It's either
reject.
going to grow or not. It's like a mutual fund.
You could sell the credit and still sell the fees.
How long would that take, then?
That's a big deal.
Months,
Yeah,
weeks.
that's a big deal.
Cost us to sever the credits.
The engineering costs and all kinds of other administrative costs. I asked Jay to incorporate that value into his assessment for what it's worth.
And as you said, Peter, we can always reject any bid that comes in.
We have an oil line but it's not separated, and we are large enough, not good anymore, we have to redo that. So that's the process.
We can still reject it. I missed that. We can still reject the bid, correct?
Yeah, of course, yeah, at the time, but you're gonna have to pass another resolution accepting the bids.
Okay.
Sean, do you have a date that you can put on this resolution?
I think they're going, I'm looking at the end of July,
At least a couple weeks, at least.
maybe July 30th. It's not on this information.
So bid back by July 30th, is that right?
You can give her the discretion to insert the date, not later than the end of July, does that work?
Okay.
Date to be set by the,
Okay with that motion, who made it?
Well, I have a question.
Yeah, Joe.
I believe I'm in direct conflict here, but I belong to an organization that does plan on putting a bid on one or several of these properties.
well, it could be argued they have a personal interest in and making them available, so it would be appropriate, I guess, for you to identify that. And
That's why I'm making that right now.
All right, thank you, Mr. Yates.
So Sean, who made the motion and seconded it? Okay. So Joe, you made the original motion, so
You have to invite-
I have to withdraw it.
there's no withdrawal, so would someone like to make
I'll make the motion.
motion, and Stephen, you're still second?
Yeah.
Okay. And that's going to be with a date not to exceed July 30th for the sealed bids? You okay with that, Kim?
Yes.
31st, okay. A roll call?
Thank you. Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Abstain.
Mayor Barton?
Yes. Resolution 2018-77, authorize the appointment of the temporary chief financial officer pursuant to NJSA 40A:9-140.13, parentheses F. Need a motion and a second?
Second.
Okay, Mrs. Brown and Mr. Yates. We had an extended discussion on this earlier. Any further discussion required?
How do we arrive, and this is, how do we arrive at Doug being the right person for this? Why not? Why not the tax collector? Why not the clerk? Why not the deputy clerk? What was the thought process? Because I don't know anything about this until Friday afternoon. So can someone kind of fill me in on how we got here?
Richard, can you weigh on that legally? Who can be the temporary?
Any person can be a temporary, under the statute, ostensibly be working towards their certification. Any second appointment would result in tenure. I think Doug was falling on the sword to get it done, get the job done, I think, and to be able to create a bridge to another remedy, another permanent solution. So, to my knowledge, there wasn't really anything other than that Doug was the default guy to step up and take care of it until we got to where a committee would make a final decision, but Doug can elucidate that if you like. I'm not aware of it.
Well, I'm your chief executive officer. That's how it's been handled in other towns. But, Mr. Lee, if you're not comfortable with me doing it, that's your decision.
I didn't say that.
Well,
I didn't
It's
say
more
I
or less
was
what you're
comfortable.
saying, but that's...
I'm sorry?
It's more or less what you're saying, but that's fine.
Well, let's be really clear about what I'm saying. My question was, how did we arrive at this decision? And I wanted to understand how we got here, what the process was. That's what I was asking.
And I thought I had explained that to you on Friday night, but...
Well, I
Probably not well enough.
Perhaps.
yeah, Doug did.
Because actually, to be clear, part of the benefit of public comment on agenda items is for members of the public to raise questions about the agenda. And we had some comments regarding the agenda this evening, and it prompted some thought from my standpoint. Does it make sense? Now, is it innocuous? Probably, because we are going to have a CFO. We're going to hire relatively soon as we're going through that process. Kim and I are actually involved in that process once we get the resumes again. But I just wanted to ensure that this was to understand how we got to this point. It was my general question, which is what I asked at the very beginning of my comments.
I guess because I handled the budget.
Okay.
Yeah, I will say that on Thursday, when Doug and I talked about this, he offered it as a solution to a situation that we're in, and basically volunteered to be the CFO. And at that time, I questioned him, I thought extensively, like, number one, does he have the bandwidth to do it? He assured me that it's something he could handle. It wasn't that much of a big deal because he would be hiring a third party basically to be the CFO. He would basically just be the legal person in position. Even though he would be responsible, he still has to have oversight over that person. And he felt comfortable to do it. We did not talk about were there other opportunities for others to take on that role. And hopefully, this is only going to be a 30 or 60-day period that we've got to get through until we get the bids back, and hopefully you and Mrs. Brown can find a qualified candidate and make a recommendation to this board so we have the new CFO.
The first I'd seen it was when my agenda showed up at my house on Friday, so I was wondering how we got here. That's all the comments I have this time.
It was Doug volunteering, that's how we got there, looking to resolve the situation that we're in. Okay, any other discussion? Okay, a roll call?
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Gates?
Yes.
Mayor Martin?
Yes. Resolution 2018-78, authorized professional service contract with Bowman & Company for accounting and consulting services. A motion and a second.
Second.
discussion? Don't you want to talk about the cost for Bowman? Yes. I believe you have a quote from them, right?
I don't have it in front of me, though, I never do know it. We did a comparison between Jersey Professionals and Bowman. Terry had experience with Bowman, and we tried a number of times to have a longer discussion with Jersey Professionals. They offered us one alternative that was at a higher price, based on it's up to 10 hours a week on a figure not to exceed $27.50 a month. In comparison, Jersey Professional was $27.60 for their minimum hours that they would provide, and they gave me a range of hours, so we expected that higher. Plus, they had a finder's fee of $1,500 on top of that. So, that's why we elected to go with Bowman. Terry has done some work with them and is familiar with the person they're going to provide us with, and feels comfortable of their expertise and ability to maintain our records.
Okay, any further questions or comments?
Mayor, in the spirit of full disclosure, corporation I work for uses Bowman as our tax accountant, so I'll be abstaining from this vote.
Okay. A roll call?
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Abstain.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Mayor Barton?
Yes. Okay, under old business, we have a report that Dan Guzzi put together for us, and it's a very good report. Thank you, Dan, for this. I read through it quite extensively, and he basically gives us all the different scenarios of how we can maintain our roads. It gets into the maintenance program, how we can maintain to extend the life of our roads, and then he offers two scenarios. One's a 10-year maintenance plan, and the other is a 20-year maintenance plan. And he assigns costs with that. And if we're going to seriously take a look at our road program in the future, my personal opinion, but there's others up here that may have other opinions on this, is that our basic taxes should support the road program. We should not be bonding and going into debt to support a road program that is an O&M item. It's something that needs to be maintained for the life of the township. And to bond for something like that kind of just kicks the can down the road. And some years maybe gets you a little more work done than necessary, and other years not. But we can have that conversation another day. But Dan, you want to go over your report? And I have an extra copy here for some reason if somebody on the committee doesn't have a copy.
I just want to make a comment for Dan.
Yeah, get it.
Dan, did you pull all the county roads out of here?
Yeah, the county roads are pulled out, and,
I see one that's a county road.
which,
Flyett Road, Old Indian Mills to Carranza, that's a county road.
I'll check that.
I
On the spreadsheet.
just happened to know that one off the
That's
top of my
fine.
head.
Mr. Lee caught me too, because I forgot speed bump, so we did add that in the latest version.
So that won't even be a cost to us.
So basically what we did was we just looked at every single paved road within the town, evaluated them, and assigned basically a condition rating system to them in order to sort of prioritize. And it's a tool that the committee can use as we move forward in prioritizing roads, and also to give you a handle on the kind of money that we're looking at over the next 10, 20 years as far as what maintenance is going to be required. And as you're all aware, if you avoid the maintenance for too many years, you get into a situation where the roads deteriorate to the point where they're going to cost you a lot more money to repair, and you have a lot of roads that are at once in need of significant repairs. So again, just a tool, and I think a reference that we could utilize over the next several years as we move forward with road programs. But I agree with you, Mr. Barton, I think it's important to, to have a budget for roads every year. We can take advantage of some of the grant opportunities that are out there in the DOT grant, but we should also have a local, fund for road.
Any questions from the committee? Mr. Guzzi?
Give us a second.
Yeah, go ahead and take your time. And while you're talking, Doug, let's talk a little bit about maintenance, because in this report it talks about doing maintenance of the roads. And our public works right now today is, we don't have the equipment.
We don't have the equipment, but we're looking, we're scheduled in September right now to do crack sealing, and we would rent that equipment for at least a minimum of a 2-week period. We've been trying to get a demo in here where we can do some of it just to make sure, but we did that previous years, and we'd like to get back to that program.
Because in Dan's report, the maintenance is a big key piece of this in order to extend the life of these programs, and you can see he rates them, from 99 on down. And at a certain point, he identifies in his report when we should be maintaining those roads, kind of slow down the deterioration process, and we're going to get to a point where do we make a capital expenditure to be able to do that with our manpower? Do we have the right amount of manpower to do that? Do we have to increase manpower, or is it something we contract for? And it's something we can look at as we digest this report. But if we're going to have a good solid road program, and this is a good first step because he's identified all the roads other than a few corrections that will take place. The good news is Flyett Road is in great shape, so there was no number assigned to that one. But as I said, if we're going to go with a 10 or 20-year program, we've got to be able to finance that program on an annual basis, and we can't deviate from it. And what I didn't see, Dan, and maybe we look at that later, is in these groupings, or do we just simply add up the numbers and say, we can get from the bottom of the list going up to the list, and if we're in the 10-year program for 1.3 million, or the 20-year program, or the 10-year program.
Well, and you don't necessarily have to go in that exact order, because sometimes it makes sense to group roads that are in a similar area or in a single development. So,
but you're confident in that 10 or 20 years we can get through that whole road program and then go repeat it.
It's a major capital investment to do that, but that's what you're looking at if you want to proceed.
Dan, thank you for your patience. I appreciate that. Can you check on Old Indian Mills Road, Tuckerton Road, Route 206? The portion from Tuckerton Road to Fly Road, that may be county?
That is.
It is 648.
Okay. Here's your answer.
But it says Tuckerton to 206. If you're going Tuckerton towards 206, you're now on Chemung.
On which side of?
If you're going south, if you're on Old Indian Mills Road going south.
I'll check that whole flyer.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. And it would be county, because I think county intersects at 206. If the county road goes all the way up to 206. No? No, it doesn't. Just to Tuckerton?
Just, it goes from Tuckerton to Flyett,
Tuckerton to Fly.
and it doesn't go to the highway anymore.
Oh, okay. But
It starts on the other side of the highway.
But anyway, on the other end of the coin, that still goes into Chemung if you're going that direction.
That's a local road now.
But it's Chemung.
Chemung's.
Right.
You're right.
It's not ours.
All right, we'll check that.
And I apologize, because this is the first I'm seeing this tonight.
Dan, in your evaluation of Patty Boca Road, we've opened the 7 years I've been on the committee. We've had a lot of discussion at the committee level, but also there's been a lot of feedback we've gotten from the TAA branch of the rec committee about doing something differently in front of Patty Boca Park. In your opinion, is there anything we ought to be doing differently there in terms of we've obviously got that area that's slowed down, there's some heads up, that type of thing.
Are you talking about for speed control or?
Well, just in a general, I mean, we just resurfaced the road. So no work is required. But my question is, should we be doing anything differently in the stretch in front of the pole barn?
Well, what you could do is I mean, there's signage and there's a pavement warning that you can do to try to calm traffic. I think that's what you're talking about, basically, to have people slow down, be more aware that, you know, there is a park there. So that's something we can look at, separate from, you know, obviously, road improvement, but certainly we can look at that.
I mean, I know that I've had discussions with residents that live in that area. I know Joe has. We all probably have at one point or the other, but obviously, the noise factor is an issue with some of those improvements you're referring to. But if you could look at some thoughts or look at some potential opportunities there,
Okay.
I appreciate that. And also, we've had some discussion about Hawkins Road as well. We tend to get a lot of feedback from residents from Hawkins Road, from Carranza to 206. I know that Doug and I have had some extensive discussions regarding that. We've talked about speed bumps, we've talked about all kinds of things, because one of the things that concerns me and concerns many residents, especially live along that road, is that there's a lot of traffic, a lot of fast traffic, especially when a particular institution finishes class. So if you could take a look at some opportunities there as well, I appreciate that.
Sure.
That's all I have, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments on Dan's report before we?
No, actually, it's a very good.
Yeah, great report. Yeah, by the way.
Okay, Dan, while you're up, you want to talk about the new road speed limit?
Certainly.
We
Committee had asked us to do a speed study to possibly reduce the speed limit on New Road between Mallard and Chatsworth. Which is completed. We did a report, which I think you have in front of you tonight. Basically, the findings support reduction of the speed limit to 25 miles an hour. So we provided a sample ordinance, which we gave to Peter, who can fashion it into the appropriate format. And if the committee wanted to proceed with that, you could entertain that on your, well, at any time, but if you wanted to entertain it at your next meeting in July, introduce that to reduce it. And then once it's adopted, we just have to re-sign the road.
And 35 is the lowest we could push that road to?
Yeah.
You want to explain to the public why it can't go lower than 35?
The speed study is based on a number of factors, including the type of development and the density of development on that stretch of road. Also, a actual speed study to see how fast cars are actually, moving on that road, and then a review of accident reports on the road itself, and basically using all that, you look at what the DOT recommends, and as far as the type of road and what the recommended speed limits are for by the DOT, and adjust it to that. So 35 miles an hour is the minimum that we could adjust that to. Obviously, the school zone is going to be the lower speed when the students are present, so that'll maintain the same 25 mile an hour when students are present.
Okay, and then also in that area, basically from Nixon's to get past the school zone. As you know, there's a lot of bicycles out here on the weekend, and they ride New Road, and they ride a lot of roads. And unfortunately, most times they don't follow the rules, and they ride 4 or 5 abreast. But when they do follow the rules, and even when school's in, would you recommend no parking in that area also? Because I see people do park in that stretch, which takes that shoulder away, which concerns me about the EMS building when vehicles are going in and out of that EMS building, especially under emergency situations. Is that something we should also be considering?
Certainly, we can take a look at that. We didn't really take a look at that with respect to the no parking on that. But we can take a look at that
Okay.
Joe, you have to be careful doing that because I know during special events, especially graduation, I mean, parents, grandparents, they have their place to park because school runs out of area. So we have to be careful doing something like that.
Well, is that something we could get around with traffic control or police protection during certain special events that allow people to park? I don't know.
Problem is that your cartway there, you don't really have enough shoulder to park without encroaching into the travel lanes. So to, you know, if you have a special event, obviously there's going to be overflow, things are going to be there, but people get, you know, the potential for limiting parking at other times.
So, you know, is the school putting themselves at risk with liability by allowing parking along there and going into the cartway? Because there is no shoulder there, and if there was a special event, would police officers be able to offset that and be able to restrict the speed limit through there and maybe slow people down even further during a special event?
Yeah, possibly slow them down. If they're parked on both sides of the road, you're really pinching that for two-way traffic. That's the problem, because of the narrow shoulders now. Cartway varies from 30 to 35 feet.
But it is a problem during special events.
Yeah,
It is, but what I'm getting at is, the last thing I want to see is a township resident who's, I mean, excited about their child graduating in the 8th grade, getting a parking ticket because we put a no parking zone in that area.
I'd recommend, Mayor, that we have a meeting scheduled with liaison committee next month. I would recommend bringing this up.
Okay.
On the agenda.
Okay, we can do that. And, you know, maybe with that, we talk to the school about, you know, how are they going to address the parking issues with special events. I know I was at the 8th grade graduation, and the grammar school had plenty of parking. Nobody wants to park there and walk all the way over. So, you know, how do they handle it? We'll table that, and we'll do as the deputy mayor said, and we'll discuss this next month. In the meantime, Dan, you'll do this more.
Yes.
Okay, we had a correspondence from the Finance Festival, focus on our town, and as you know, every year on Saturday evening, we recommend to the Finance Festival, and they honor a resident of Tabernacle. And so I wanted to bring that up for discussion if anyone has recommendation of who we as a committee should recommend that they honor for the year 2018.
I'd like to recommend Ricky Hayes.
I would support that.
Kim, you okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's, I don't think we need a roll call on this, right? It's unanimous that we're going to recommend to the Finance Festival Committee that Ricky Haynes will be the one that we're going to recommend. And if you want to reach out to Mr. Haynes and
I could, or Stephen could, I mean,
okay.
we're in contact with the family, so.
If one of you would reach out and make sure they're going to be available on that particular evening, which will be Saturday, July 28th. And good choice, thank you.
Do you need, I'm looking down, I just want, she knows exactly what I'm going to bring up. Yeah, okay. Don't want to buy it for Mr.
Yes.
It should be very hard to get.
Well, whoever connects them could contact him, could you ask him if he has the bio, if not, could he put one together?
I think Mr. Yates has
and get it
volunteered to do that.
to the clerk?
No problem.
Actually, I'll
Okay,
ask his-
reports.
I'll ask his wife if she can put together a bio.
Okay.
She may give you a different bio than he would. I'm sure she would.
You think it would be longer? No comment.
Yeah, he wouldn't say much.
Okay. Before we do reports, LaShawn, you had something special you wanted to do, right? Are you involved in this? Okay. I'm going to ask all the committee to come out front here with me. And we're going to invite our CFO, Mr. Perry, would you please come out front here and join us? As you may know, today is Terry Henry's last meeting with us, and he's going to be retiring and hopefully riding his nice motorcycle off into the sunset. And to do that properly, Terry, we did have a proclamation that all the committees signed. It's not that long. Just one of the girls behind us. And she's standing here in the middle of all, that's all. And so we have a proclamation recognizing and appreciating Terry W. Henry. Whereas after serving Tabernacle Township for 16 years, Terry Henry is retiring on July 1st, 2018, as he served the capacity of Chief Financial Officer, Tax Collector, and Certifying Officer for many, many years. Whereas on June 18, 2001, by virtue of Resolution 2001-80, Terry Henry was appointed to a 4-year term as Chief Financial Officer for Tabernacle Township until being reappointed on January 3rd, 2005, by virtue of Resolution 2005-20. Terry Henry was reappointed Chief Financial Officer and granted tenure status from the Department of Community Affairs, Division of Local Government Services. And Kim, I believe you voted for that. And Joe, you were here, you voted on that. Whereas Terry Henry also serves as the Pension and Benefits Certifying Officer for Tabernacle Township, and whereas in this notice of retirement, Terry stated that he worked with the best co-workers at Town Hall he could have ever asked for. However, we are the blessed ones for having you in our lives, and we appreciate that, Terry. Whereas through Terry's strong work ethic, he saved the township time and money. He has displayed the qualities of a dependable, organized, efficient, and very trustworthy employee in all aspects of his employment with Tabernacle Township. He provided an outstanding vision and strong management skills for the township. Now therefore be it resolved by the mayor and committee of the Township of Tabernacle, County of Burlington, State of New Jersey, that we do hereby extend our most sincere gratitude to Terry Henry for his many years of service and commitment to the township, and congratulate him on his well-deserved retirement, and with best wishes for many years of happiness, good health, and commitment. And as you can see, Terry, it was signed by all 5 of us, even though Mr. Franzen is not here tonight. He did sign it. So I congratulations, I thank you.
Happy to bring Terry in when we're looking. We're very fortunate to get Terry, and glad he stayed so long.
That was all from the beginning. Joe?
I guess there comes a time when all of us decide it's time to see who's on our bucket list. It looks like that's what you wish to do. So I wish you the very best. Thank you for your service.
Kim and I have a responsibility of finding somebody to fill your shoes, which won't be easy to do. You came to us and you don't live around the corner, and yet the lights are on, and the lights are on because someone forgot to turn the lights off. The lights are usually on because you're here, and you're downstairs working, and you spend a lot of time here, essentially doing the people's work, and it's not a has not been an easy road because it's difficult to commute back and forth. You've done a lot of running around for a part-time job, essentially, at the end of the day. But it's going to be very difficult to find someone to fill your shoes. But we are eternally grateful for the service you provided to us. I know Doug's going to miss you. I know the girls are going to miss you. We all will. The door's always open, and the lights will always be on. I'm not sure they'll be on as frequently as they were when you were here. But thank you very much for your continued service, and best of luck to you moving forward.
Terry, I'd just like to thank you for the 16 years. You've been a great asset to the community, a great asset to me, great help. And I wish you all the best, and enjoy your motorcycle.
Sean?
Thank you.
Kim?
Congratulations, buddy. Have fun.
Come on now, your turn. Your last.
Terry, thank you for always having an answer when I needed one. I'm going to miss you. Easy. Enjoy it.
Great. So Terry, thank you. We'll report.
actually got to say that I didn't really want to leave here. It's just that, you know, I'm leaving my day job, so the state says if you would leave your day job, you got to leave a night job. So.
We really tried to fix that.
So,
we really did.
Yeah, so I don't want to go, but you know, the state says differently. But I thank you all. You know, thank you very much.
Thank you. Good job.
Thank you.
Good. Enjoy your retirement. Dan, you gave us an extensive report. Do you have anything else that you did?
Just real quick, the ESP Towers, that project is underway, the contractors are working on that, and we are finalizing the grant application for Franza Road, which will submit after July 1st in order to match the DOT's fiscal year. We get caught in with half an application, let's start with their fiscal year, so that would be that application will be made, I would say probably by, the next couple weeks.
Well, in your report, would you talk about Tucker Road, that encroachment, and how we're going to resolve that?
Mr. Moore's property. We have a piece of property at the end of Tucker Road. Actually, the building, it was built many years ago over top of the easement that where Tucker Road meets Carranza and becomes a joint road. For decades, it's always turned behind the building and came out to Carranza Road right there. Unfortunately, we don't have an easement across that neighboring property. We're working on whether we want to resolve and relinquish the right-of-way out. The state of New Jersey has bought a portion of ground that's on the backside in Chemung Township. We need to talk to them about whether they want that road open or not. We would see whether Mr. Moore could get an easement across this neighboring property if they want that to remain open. We also have to talk to Chemung Township. Dan has been working on that, on some preliminary stuff like that, to address, because it's a shared right-of-way. At one time, the property was owned jointly with the property in Chemung by the same owner. Through a divorce, it became separated, and it's a substandard lot in Tabernacle. That was never an issue when it was attached to the adjoining property in Chemung. So those are the issues we're working on. We don't have them.
But it's on your radar. We're going to
It's on our radar, and we'll keep working on it.
Okay, just want to make sure it doesn't fall into the hole. Okay, anything else?
I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the residents for their patience. We've been still working on brush collection from the two storms in March, and our regular routine brush collection, which is was scheduled for April. We are in the last section. We are making headway along with the contractor. We did get our second machine back from repairs today, so we plan to be out tomorrow with 2 crews from the township and 1 crew from the contractor. So we hope to make some headway over the next couple of weeks and hope to be done the brush hopefully between 2 and 3 weeks. We should be done. So we just appreciate the residents' patience with them.
Peter?
I have a couple of items for executive session, which I will certainly appreciate the time. I will indicate that with respect to the Long Street property, that the property owner redeemed, which is their right, the tax liens and paid taxes in full through up to and including the current time frame. So the sale was canceled as a result, and the township collected all of its taxes.
Committee reports. Mr. Yates?
Nothing new.
Okay, Mrs. Brent?
I have nothing, thank you.
Deputy Mayor Lee?
I'd like to welcome Arch Liston, who has gone home. But, I want to welcome him aboard here to Tabernacle. He's certainly been hitting the ground running without doubt, and appreciate those efforts. Also, we, as many of you know, we've been working with residents that don't have broadband service here in Tabernacle with Verizon. I'm happy to report that we've achieved the number of applications and service agreements required for Verizon to provide some sort of service as per the BFRR regulations. So the ball is now in their court. Tabernacle's residents that did not have broadband have now achieved everything they needed to be able to put themselves in a position to be able to receive broadband. So very pleased with that. It's been a long process. I attended the Seneca graduation this past Thursday, which then prompted another thought that I wanted to bring up this evening. We've had some discussions regarding public event resolutions and an ordinance that we discussed perhaps maybe 2 months ago. I think Red was when we were having some discussion with the LDB, and I'd like to get that moving and kind of continue that process. I know that we had our OEM coordinator had met with Holy Eucharist as an example as the next major event, but I think if we have concerns regarding public parking along the road for major events, I think at the very least we need to get this resolution done. So just a kind of a general comment. I'd like to get that moving. Also, I want to formally welcome Ashwin and Jinga Patel to the neighborhood. They were the folks that purchased Nixon's General Store. That sale was concluded back on the 15th, I believe, and we want to wish them, the Nixons and the McGinnis family, the best of luck in their retirement. Certainly, I think it's worthwhile noting that Nixon's has been a pinnacle and continues to be a pinnacle of our community for many, many years, and I wish the Patels the very best of luck moving forward. On Tuesday of this past week, I attended the graduation with Mayor Barton, and we addressed the class, and Mayor Barton presented certificates to the 36th class from Olson Middle School. That's all I have.
Okay. Stephen, that events resolution you mentioned, is that something you have to do with the Land Development Board, and should they get a couple members as a subcommittee to talk about that?
No, they're completely unrelated. The only LDB reference was the fact that the conversation was initiated during an LDB meeting that we had, and that was because Holy Eucharist had come to us and wanted we had to do the resolutions for the festival. And Colonel Lowe actually was the one that had made a recommendation that we pass a resolution. He outlined very clearly to us why we needed to do it, why it made sense. An ordinance, I just keep saying resolution. And Colonel Lowe is 100% correct on this. It's something we ought to be doing, because there's a lot of public events that we have, a lot of major events, and he had made the recommendation that we look at doing an ordinance, we ought to get it done.
I think that ordinance is ready. The last comment was to whether or not there should be a modification of the fee if it's a recurring event. And so other than that, it was going to be reviewed by our new public safety director and vetted cursorily, and then provided to the clerk for an agenda.
Well, those two folks are here. They're up and they're not here, but they're
Ready to move that.
they're ready. They share an office as of today, I guess. So we got stuff to talk about.
So Peter, could you circulate that to the committee and to the public safety director and the OEM coordinator?
Sure.
And Dan, I would suggest that you reach out to the public safety director when we talk about New Road again. Since he was a police chief for many, many years and dealt with traffic control, and maybe he would be valuable to talk about, what should or shouldn't be allowed on that road, and how we overcome event parking, and how do we make that safer for the residents of Tabernacle. Okay.
Mayor, just one other thing I want to mention is we have a liaison committee coming up committee meeting coming up with the Board of Ed in July. It's actually before our next meeting. We're specifically going to take a walk over at Sequoia and look through the property. I think you're coming, Doug is coming, and also Mr. Liston is going to be joining us as well.
Okay.
It's a great opportunity for the municipality and the school board to look at a building together and have some joint uses. Colonel Love made some very good comments at our last meeting, and I agree with him on this too. This is a really good opportunity to do something great for the community. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and I want to thank the deputy mayor for being a guest, for being a speaker at the 8th grade graduation. I was there. I got to shake 95 hands and hand out 95 certificates. And I'll tell you, the school does a good job of putting on a really first-class event for the 8th graders. It's a very memorable event and evening for all of them.
I think it's the staff that has a lot to do with it.
And again, Terry, congratulations and best wishes on your retirement. Rudy, good to see you back at our committee meetings. You look very good. You're smiling. You're happy as usual. Thank you, and we're glad you're back with us. And also, Doug, I want to congratulate you on your new job as chief financial officer. Hopefully it's very short-lived. It's a short of that.
I like the pay, pays pretty good,
Yeah.
as Sean
And
said.
you heard the deputy mayor talk about broadband. And, you know, I had the pleasure of going to some meetings with the deputy mayor and with Verizon and followed this. And I got to tell you, his father did a yeoman's job in putting this effort together and rallying all the folks needed to be able to get broadband and internet service to that section of our town. I mean, there is no service out there. So I can tell you, there was hundreds and hundreds of hours probably put in between Stephen and his father in this. And I want to thank you and your dad personally for that, Stephen. It was a big commitment. It took a long period of time. It was kind of like a David and Goliath. You know, they were up against Verizon, and there was just two of them. And Verizon tried to beat them down every chance they could. And Stephen's father, being an electrical engineering background, put together some really, really good information and showed them where they were wrong. And they won. At the end of the day, we won. We got what we needed. It's just a matter of everyone getting their applications in and getting the infrastructure built. So I thank you and your dad.
You gotta get them in. We're watching.
It's a big effort, Stephen. I thank you for that. Having come in from a utility background, I appreciate that. With that, we're going to open up the public comment. Please give us your name and address and try to restrict your comments to 3 minutes. Mr. Brooks.
Thank you, Stuart Brooks, Morris Meadow Road. First, Eric Henry, thank you for your service. It was a pleasure being with you as a member. Much appreciated. Enjoy your retirement. Doug, thank you for the update on the Moore's encroachment. I didn't hear mention of the historical importance of the right-of-way in back. I didn't hear that that was an element that was being researched or considered or evaluated. Is it? Mr. Franzen commented that should be a consideration as the owner.
The historical reason, keeping the road open for historical reasons? Is that what you're referring to?
And I believe I'm correct that is a right-of-way from the 19th century, if not before.
It may be. It may be. It was the stagecoach road.
Yes.
At one point in time.
So is that a consideration in the resolution of the issue?
It will be when we deal with the state, yes.
Thank you. Mr. Guzzi, could you give me an update on Carranza Road?
I just did. The application for the balance of it, or the initial part of the road? The first part is going to be, we're finalizing the plan for the road program. It's got to be submitted to DOT because they're funding a portion of it for their review and authorization. Then we'll be going out to bid, hopefully sometime in July. The second portion is the application for the balance of that, which we're applying for a discretionary grant from DOT in conjunction with Tabernacle Township and with the support of other agencies And that application will actually be formally submitted after the 1st of July because we're waiting for the new fiscal year for DOT.
All right, thank you for repeating that. I was in the back.
That's okay.
I couldn't hear it. And most importantly, I want to apologize to the board. At the last meeting, I think my comments generated more heat than light at times. And I apologize for conducting myself that way, and because I was disappointed in the way that came out. That being said, I hope that the style of my delivery didn't interfere with the message that I was delivering. The message that I was delivering is one that I feel very strongly about. That is that the legal invoices that you receive don't meet state standards. They don't state a matter. They don't state the hours worked, the time worked on each item. And the comments over the last 2 or 3 meetings discussed that. And the issue was regarding an inquiry as to what SSA court meant. And just as, or similar to what you commented on today, Mr. Lee, when you receive information late, didn't have a chance to review it, and so there was a lot of discussion about what was in the resolutions, hiring Bowman and appointing John as temporary CFO. So it is in the public, when we ask a question about an unintelligible entry, one that doesn't have a matter, doesn't say what it's about, and we ask questions. And when the response comes back, I can't tell you because that's close to confidential information. Client privilege. It's unsatisfactory. This is a resolution that you reviewed, you passed, you meaning the board. It's been passed by Tabernacle, it's been passed by Woodland, and there's nowhere in the entries, and if you would give me a few minutes, I'll finish up. There's nowhere in the billing invoices that says work on the Woodland Township Shared Services Agreement. Yet we all know it was worked on, but we've all seen the resolution. We all know that you passed it. We know it's been done. So why can't that show up in the invoices in a way that the state recommends for the purposes of transparency? Why is it that you continue to accept and condone the receipt, the submission and the receipt of what's clearly substandard, clearly, with all due respect, unintelligible, and what clearly you, Mr. Lang, won't even deign to approve or deny? When it was asked, is this the Woodland Township Shared Services Agreement, the answer was, well, it speaks for itself, I can't tell you. It certainly seems clear that it is the Shared Services Agreement, and I think it's a terrific disservice to the residents to not know what you're paying for.
Okay, Mr. Brooks, we got your message, and I will tell you that we are looking internally at our attorney's invoices, and we're going to see what is it that we can do to make them more transparent.
I would recommend compliance with the Inspector General's recommendations. You've certified as a town that you've been following them for in the 2 or 3 years past when DC required.
Well, your time is up.
Very good. Thank you very much for
That's
listening.
the opinion that we are in compliance, but we will look to see how we can be more transparent. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
John Ingram, 71 North Meadow Road. First off, I'm guilty. I don't come to every meeting, but 6 months, 6 months ago when I did come, we were talking about Carranza. I just hope 6 months from now we're still talking about the bidding process. I know I'm a newer resident to Tabernacle, but I mean, it is a nightmare of a road. I mean, we drive down every day, every morning, every night, so that's the only note. I know the time frame, that's great, at least an update, but I hope 6 months from now it's still starting again. Second of all, thank you for all the hard work for the broadband. We back there, we're going to appreciate once it's in, hopefully it's in 9 months sooner, so
They've got a 9-month window where they have to do something, so
that's it.
that's
Thank
the
you.
clock is
So
ticking.
you have the application in?
Yes,
Okay.
believe me, yeah. My kids made sure.
And it's checked.
Yeah, and I will say, with the Carranza Road, which Mr. and Mrs. Brooks brought to our attention a long time ago about the condition of that road. And, we have engaged the 8th Legislative District and 9th Legislative District. Also, Congressman MacArthur has weighed in on this. And, we have a joint team between Shamong and Tabernacle to see, if we can get the funding to do the whole road. So we feel we got a full court press on it, and let's just hope the funding comes our way and we can get Carranza Road done. Because as everyone knows, there's also a national event that takes place on that road, which is coming up in July. And if you've read the paper, you've seen that the mayor of Shamong has offered an invitation to the president of Mexico. I hope he accepts it. I'm sure the road will get paved if he accepts it. In time for his joint down that road.
Let's all write him.
We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, a letter writing him, President of Mexico, to have him come to the event.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyone else from the public?
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Can we do all the way to Speedwell Road if that's okay? I'm not
It
kidding,
would be-
why not?
Well, if the president's coming, I'm sure we'll get the leverage to.
You can fly to Atlantic City and then come up that way.
There you go. Yes, Carlo.
William Love, 24 Hidden Acres Drive, Tabernacle. I'm really irritated with Mr. Lee tonight. For 2 weeks I've been sitting here going to talk about Sequoia. And I've been sitting here all night waiting for my chance to talk about Sequoia, and took the air right out of my sense. I appreciate the fact you're going to talk to the school district about Sequoia and you're going to actually look for it. We lost the opportunity before it happened. One of the reasons we used as an excuse was it wasn't handicap accessible and stuff like that. Well, Lumby's taking care of some of that for us, so maybe Lumby will actually give us something back. But the use of Sequoia and having that kind of facility available to turn it into a public library or anything like that would be a great thing. I've sat down over the last couple of weeks and thought about all the different things we could do with that building. Not the least of which is we could talk about maybe a post office. It's about time we had a post office. See if there's something like what Medford Lakes has got. What we're talking about is one of the things that Mr. Franzen has been talking over the last years since I was the OEN, was how to make the village, how to make the town more whatever it should be. And so I appreciate the fact you're going to step forward with that. And if there's anything I can do to facilitate it, this township sent me to school to be a grants writer. I mean, we can write grants, we can go stand on the desk of the people at the public library of the county. We can do all kinds of stuff once we get a facility that we can talk about using. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Mrs. Brooks.
Just in reference to Sequoia, it seems that it is one piece of a larger pie. There needs to be an overall global plan. You've been talking about public works, you've been talking about renovating this building, you've been talking about building something here for events. Doing one piece of this at a time, you really need a more comprehensive, holistic approach. And you ought to think about that Sequoia in that context. I'd just like to ask a question. Mr. Guzzi, when you say the first part of Carranza Road is going to be done, completed, or you're looking at that, doing an analysis of it now, what constitutes first part? What part of Carranza are you referring to? And
Starting the Tabernacle roadside at the end of where the pavement actually starts to really crumble apart, and working towards Moore's Meadow, paving as far as the DOT grant amount that we have now will take us.
Okay, so you're really starting north, moving south.
Yes,
Is that correct?
heading towards Moore's Meadow.
Right. But I've spoken several times about that because the majority of people who are going to benefit from that approach are going to be Shamong, and Shamong's not interested in participating in this. So it seems a little bit unfair. Why not start from Moore's Meadow and pave up? It's just,
It makes less sense to have a decent road, go to a crumbling road, and then decent road, and everything back. So, I mean, we're starting where the road is actually in better shape.
Well, I appreciate the Ingrams coming out and speaking about the road, even though they are newcomers, they use it every day. I just don't get it because it really undermines Tabernacle taxpayers by doing it that way. Maybe there is a reason, and you are a road engineer, but from my perspective, I just think it's.
Well, the idea is to go all the way down eventually, hopefully,
Clearly.
to the memorial. So, and we're starting at one end and working our way down.
Yeah, but we're not talking about the memorial. The real part that needs to be done, that has never been done, that was left to deteriorate so significantly over the last, we've been here 23 years, but it's probably 35 years going on, is that section that stops at goes from the end of the good paving to Moore's Meadow. And that's really, when you start from north to south and you're doing mostly Chemung, which never had any interest in putting a penny into supporting Carranza Road. So it's only because of our constant pounding away at this issue that now we're getting some progress, and I appreciate that we're getting some progress, but.
Well, I think it benefits everybody in Moore's Meadow. You travel that portion of the road too, right?
Well, that's true, but, I think people would feel better that there was something significant going on if it came from Moore's Meadow, instead of no, you're benefiting all the Chemung, the few Chemung residents that are there. And Chemung doesn't, until we started pushing, Chemung had no intention of participating. But I don't want to use if you would just bear with me, I don't want to get into it. It's just a difficult problem. The other thing that I want to just mention, when I asked about the Bowman costs, listen, there's a lot of information to incorporate to understand in all of these resolutions. I openly admit I missed the amount up to $27.50, but when I asked the question, it would have been appreciated. It's coming from a resident. I pay my taxes. We pay our taxes. We pay a lot of taxes, and it just would have been appreciated if the amount was discussed at that point. You could. There are lots of ways to say it.
The committee decided. I decided that that number was going to come out when we discussed the resolution, and the number came out. You got, our goal is to answer your questions. We ask you when you come up here, put your questions on the table, and by the end of the meeting, whatever questions we can answer, we'll answer. If not, we'll get back to you.
Well, I guess the main question that I would have liked to have heard answered is it going to cost us more? Well, it is costing us more. Mr. Henry's gets paid $906 every 2 weeks. Okay, so that's about $1,800 a year. I guess the legal notice has gone out. It's somewhere, maximum of $23,000, but here we're going up to $27.50 a month for 10 hours a week. I don't know. It would have been just appreciated if you said, yeah, it is gonna cost residents more. Just be straightforward and don't conceal that
Do you have any other
information.
points you'd like to make, Mrs.?
I'm sorry?
Do you have any other points here?
The only other point I'd like to make is to refer back to this issue of revenues. And this goes to the farmland assessment issue. And I don't want anyone to misunderstand what Stuart was saying, because we have many years supported commercial agriculture in the state. And I, for one, having worked many long years for the New Jersey Farm Bureau, doing an extensive amount of work directly with farmers. The point about this property that has been the focus of our attention is that it's now in the hands of a new landowner who is doing even less than Mr. Brick did. And there's no farming going on there, none whatsoever. It is time. I am almost begging you people. We have a commercial grower, a person, in the person of Deputy Mayor Lee, who knows everything about farming. And the fact of the matter, at least blueberries, cranberries, and growing pines. And the fact of the matter is that there has not been a single bit of productive agriculture going on that property. The landowners are getting farmland assessment. They have applied for a forest management plan, which they'll get a forest management plan, but they're already in the system, but they shouldn't already be in the system. There has not been a minute of agriculture taking place. And Mr. Renwick can say anything he wants to me about, send me emails, do this, do that. But when he goes down with his sidekick, and I'm going to be pejorative, Mr. Kramer, who knows what blueberry cranberry production is because his family was long involved in that, and says, oh, nothing is wrong there, I have to wonder what glasses they're using. There is no farming going on in that property, and the revenues that they are taking out of our system from taxpayers is basically stealing from us.
Okay, so
That's what it
Mrs. Brooks,
is.
what we'll
It's
do,
time to
we're going to
stop
end it
it.
there, and I will ask our administrator to have our assessor, since you're making a statement that there's no farming going on at this
That's right.
facility, we will look into it and
Well, the
make
problem
that
is that
determination.
it would be, I'm inviting every resident in Tabernacle Township to go down to Moore's Meadow and look at that farm. Tell me that farm is like similar to the Simons farm, to the
Okay, we hear
Moore
you.
farm,
We got your point.
okay?
And we
Well,
will-
it's
we'll-
time
we'll
to
look
act
into
so
it.
that we're not
Okay,
paying
thank
somebody
you.
else's taxes.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Anyone else in the public? Mrs. Barker?
Kathy Berger, 18 Woodside Drive. The governing body appoints all personnel, correct? Okay, so tonight we heard an appointment, which I think is fine, but we had a governing body member who didn't realize it was going on. So, and I've seen other appointments recently where there's no communication where we know the 5 of you have physically gotten together and discussed it. So I would just ask in the future that maybe we schedule executive sessions so we can talk about these appointments, so we're all on the same page prior to getting here and having something embarrassing like it was this evening. Second, if we apply for the county park improvement grant this year and they actually put one out, I would like to see us put in for pickleball courts. I've talked to the mayor about this before. I'd like to see us do something for the adults in the community, not just the children. I personally am tired of driving to Hainesport. I'd like to play in my backyard. So I'd like to see us do that and consider
What
it.
kind of court was that?
Excuse me?
What kind of court?
Pickleball.
I got you.
What
Where do we
exactly?
have pickleball?
On our tennis courts.
Do we?
They were striped that way when we redid them last
Love
year.
it. I'll check it out, thank you. Because I go to Hainesport to play. So I'm gonna check it out, but we might still need an additional
Yeah, it
one.
was
But I'll
done.
get back to you and let you
It was
know.
done when we researched them about a year ago.
Yes.
Yeah, I know Hainesport put in 6 brand new ones with the county park improvement grant. That's why I'm concerned about that.
I don't mind being to sound stupid, but what exactly is pickleball?
It's like a mini tennis game. So picture a mini tennis court, don't cut into my time here, okay, because I have another thing for you. Mini tennis court.
It's got the clock.
Go Cat.
So it's like tennis and ping pong all together. And you play with a hard paddle and like a wiffle ball. Awesome time. So, I showed you
Big
the,
wiffle ball or little wiffle?
no, like a regular sized wiffle ball.
Okay.
It's awesome. So, gotta try. All right, my last thing is you cut the aid to the volunteer ambulance company down to 12,000. So my question is, how are we handling balance billing? Because I've heard no discussion on what we're doing about balance billing, yet I've been listening for at least 4 years that we have to have this in the budget and turn it over to the squad in order to not have balance billing. How are we addressing
Okay,
this?
so in the budget, there's also $10,000 in reserve for future balance billing if the committee decides to do that. As you know, we appointed a public safety director, and the public safety director has been charged to look at how we deliver emergency services in Tabernacle, the resources we have, the amount of equipment we have, and at some point in time, hopefully in the near future, he's going to make a recommendation to this committee how to deliver those services in the most cost-effective manner that benefits the residents of Tabernacle Township.
And I understand that, but right now, TRS is providing it, and they bill.
They are, and they're covered for the balance bill that they have on the table as of now. And there is.
Currently for this year, you're saying?
Yeah, then there's a reserve if the committee decides to finance the balance billing for the rest of the year.
Because in prior years, we've had to do at least 30-some thousand per what they've given us as documentation. All right, thank you.
Anyone else in the public? Okay, we're going to close the public portion. We're going to go into executive session where the governing body wishes to discuss litigation matter involving Fran Brooks versus Township of Tabernacle, docket L-1048-18, and potential litigation involving Parkway right of way for some NJSA 10:4-12.
Hey, George. What a tragedy. I mean, I just didn't know her. It was a sudden. I just can't, I can't hold myself for 2 years. So, first time I've seen you, but
Always.
Welcome to the Tabernacle.
I left your daughter's
Hey.
I wouldn't let me sit. I didn't know what it said.